So welcome to Stripey Bad Hair Day, because that's what it feels like today. My hair just won't do anything and I'm wearing a stripy top, just to confuse the lines on your horizontals for contrast on your computer. Yeah, I'll do a bit of that. So, here we are, and I bet you're asking, why have I got this in front of me? I won't tell you what this is, because those of you who have a clue will probably already have guessed what this thing is. But I'm not going to start there. I'm going to start somewhere else. I'm going to start with this. Now, during the week, I was doing some analysis on the channel. And the reason I was doing the analysis on the channel is obviously because they're changing the partner program. So I was trying to work out what was good, what was bad, and all the other stuff in between. I'm not going to stop doing rants, whether people like them or not. I get more likes than I get dislikes, so that's always good. But I was also looking at what people were really looking up and getting or asking questions about. And one of the things that people seem to ask a lot of questions about is this, which is the Roland MX-1. And I think people really misunderstand what the MX-1's all about. I'm not saying I know what the MX-1's all about, because it always seems a bit of a funny thing, but it was predominantly, I think, when Roland introduced this, what they were looking for was a live mixer that would combine the boutiques and the ARIA range, especially the ARIA range, because the boutiques weren't thought about then, but the ARIA range. So, you know, looking at things, I've got the hiccups, like the TR8 and the TB3 and the System 1 and System 8, and being able to actually combine those to work live. And this is where this thing came from. It was designed to fulfill that function. You know, pop them all in a bag, and there was a bag that was made. I don't know whether anyone's seen it, but there was a bag that was made where you had the MX-1 in one side, the TR8 in the other side. You could put a System 1 in the middle and a little pocket for the TB3. All the power supplies went to the other end, and off you went. You were away. Great idea. Unfortunately, I'm not sure where the market has gone with that, and I'm not sure where the sort of the whole sort of DJ 808, 5005, and 202 come into the sort of big mix. But Roland has also gone off in that direction as well. So it sort of is a little bit confused around this. But I do think people sort of misunderstand what the MX-1 is about. In my view, it is not a great surface controller, okay, for a DAW. I tried it a couple of times with a couple of different DAWs. I tried it with Logic, and I've also tried it with Ableton, and neither ones I've really got on particularly well. You're trying to use this as a surface for either one of those, so I gave up in the end, and I haven't used it as a surface. The other main function of this, and how it comes normally out of the factory, is set up in mixer mode. So basically, it is a bulk standard mixer. You can have 4 digital ins, so flipping it onto the other way around. There are 4 USB ports there, so you can have 4 digital ins, and you can also have a 5th digital in, which will be your computer. So it can actually send the information the wrong way down the USB, if you like, from your computer into here, and you use this effectively as the mixer and have the master outs here. So off it goes to a PA desk, etc. That's mixer mode. And then there's a sort of hybrid mode, if you like, which is sort of a combination somewhere between the two, where the channels are presented up to the computer, and you can push it out to the computer, and you can push stuff back from the computer. And that's sort of kind of the mode I tend to use this in. Although I do use it more as a mixer than anywhere else. I use it as a sub-mixer for the ARIA stuff. And the reason why the Jupiter is here, for my Jupiter. So I can actually send the signal via USB from the Jupiter into the MX-1, and it will then present itself as a digital channel. The DNA conversion is done here, not on the synthesizer, and away we go. But it also allows you then to put some of the effects that are on the MX-1 onto the Jupiter signal in, I suppose, if you like, in sort of a post-production style way. So rather than using the effects actually on the keyboard itself, you can have a fairly clean signal, or you can put effects there, and then you can add a bit more delay actually on the mixer itself rather than the keyboard. Would you want to do that? I don't know. It's personal preference. I just like using it in that way. And the other thing I quite like is the fact that when I do add a delay, I can add a delay to the Jupiter, and I can add a delay to the TR-8 at the same time. So they're both getting the same delay pattern or delay parameters on their signals at the same time. And just one of the things I quite like about that thing. That's why I use it that way. But it also then brings us on to the fact that what Roland did with the last, or have done successively with the upgrades to this MX-1, is every time they've released a synthesizer, in essence, they have updated the firmware of the MX-1. So that synthesizer can be used with the MX-1 using the USB port. So, you know, I've mentioned that I've got a System 1, I've got a TB3, I've got a TR-8, I've also got a System 8, which I use quite a lot, and I don't have that plugged into here, I have to be honest at this point in time. I don't have it plugged in here because I use my Jupiter through this submixer. But that's the way my studio is set up. But I could use that through here. But the other thing is, and here's my latest addition to my boutique range, you can also use these through it on the digital channel as well. So effectively, you can run one of these from here, and if you run it on bus port 3, you can actually power this from here as well. So that is good. The downside is you can only power one device from the MX-1. You can't power multiple devices from the MX-1. So the other week I did a video called USB Powergonomics, where I put a power hub in the middle of these devices, which has a 3.5 amp or 3,500 milliamp rating, and each one of these things comes in at 500 milliamps. So do the math. 3,500 divide 5 gives you 7 devices you can power off that hub of that sort of ilk. But if you power them off the hub, you can't use the MX-1 as a mixer for those devices. You need to have a different mixer. Horses for courses, it really is. It's getting an interesting conundrum to work with. So that's the MX-1. It has quite a lot of limitations as far as I am concerned now with where Roland seems to be going with its equipment range, in that, you know, as I said, the boutique range stuff, if you want to plug it into here, you can't use power, you have to use batteries. If you want to run it in digital, there are some mono audio ins on this. There's one stereo in, but there's also mono audio ins here. The problem with that is that if you use these, you take out channels 1 and 2 and channels 3 and 4. So instead of having, I think it's 11, isn't it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Yeah, so instead of having 11 channels available to you, you automatically lose 2 because you're doubling them up as stereo channels. That's already stereo. That digital in is relating to this digital in and out on the back here. So that's a dedicated digital port. So if you haven't got that, actually that's a dead port. Then you've got the 4 USBs and the PC one. Job's a good one. So moving on, because this is where the tedious link comes in, or the tortuous link, or whatever you want to call it. So moving on to the Jupiter-80. Now, this is mine. This beastie was conceived in 2011. They started building and shipping in 2011. There were 2 versions of this beastie. There was the daddy, and then there was the son, which was the 50, as far as I can see. I've never had a 50. I've never played with a 50. I've always had an 80. I got my Jupiter in 2015. I can't remember exactly when in 2015, but I got it in 2015 before I started my YouTube channel. And I got the version 2, so they just issued the version 2 at the point in time where I purchased this. And to be honest, the difference between the 1 and 2 is a software upgrade to the actual machine itself, as far as I could see. But I got this in 2015. There were a number of things that were made for it. So they made the iPad piece for it. And funny enough, when I actually bought this, I got a free iPad with it, which was great, apart from the fact that I like my iPad to be big. This was a diddy wee one. So actually what I did was I gave it to my brother because he likes playing Bomb the Beach, and that was just about the right size for him. So anyway, you got the iPad component for it. Now, some point prior to November 2017, Roland discontinued this beast. So the first thing I would say is, yes, you might have discontinued the synthesizer, but for God's sake, don't discontinue the support. So many times the manufacturers will discontinue the actual synthesizer, which is great. You know, discontinue the actual synth itself, don't make any more synths, but, you know, support the musicians who have your equipment by continuing to release patches where there is stuff that's wrong, or where there is added value, I suppose. And the reason I say that and say continue to support where there's added value is I've noticed that the Jupiter Synth app that goes on the iPad has been discontinued from the Apple Store, which means that if you've got one of these, and on my iPad I've got the synth editor for this thing, I am no longer getting updates to the synth editor. Okay, but no, if I go to a new iPad, I can't find it on the Apple Store. That, I think, is wrong. I think if you've started to support and issue those sort of things for a synthesizer, carry on doing it. These things will carry on in the musician industry for a long period of time to come. Right? Just look at the other legacy tech that I own. It carries on for a long period of time to come, and it's still extremely usable. So if you issue this stuff, if you issue the software, Roland, or any other company out there, Korg, Yamaha, Nord, I don't really make aspersions to just one company. You should be continuing to support the musical industry who are buying your products. So that means if you issue an iPad app for this, unless the iPad app is totally tush, you should be excuse me, you should be supporting that for quite a period of time to come, or give it to somebody else to support. Give them the source code and say, right, knock your socks out, charge a $1.50 or whatever it happens to be on the Apple Store or the Samsung Store, and let them make some money out of support or developing the code to support these things. Anyway, moving on from that, for the next tedious link, what are they going to do next? So they've discontinued the Fathom workstations. They've now discontinued the Jupiter. Yes, we've got the JD-XA, but they're not really in the same league as this thing, methinks. What's next? Do you think Roland in 2018 are going to come out with a Kronos killer? I'd like to see it, because Yamaha came out with the Montage, and no, it didn't work for me. I tried it. I tried the Montage, but it doesn't work to me. I mean, to me, there is a lot of way to go to beat the Kronos. The Kronos Korg have just got it so right. That's my personal opinion, of course, but Korg got it so right. Whereas Roland seemed to get this so right as well. You know, this is a joy to play. It's a joy to navigate. It's a joy to play. It gets a bit complicated when you start getting into partials and consider and down into editing tones at the very granular detail. But actually, as an instrument, as something you can actually set up on stage and support a band, or in the studio, lay tracks down, lay leads down. This is a joy to play. It really is a joy to play. Mind you, having said that, everything I sort of buy and put in the studio or have in my back stock is a joy to play for me. So that's where we are. So that's all I really wanted to say on this. We'll see what Roland come up with next. But this is sadly consigned to the synths of legend. Until next time, bye-bye. So this is the point in the video where I turn around to you and say, if you enjoyed the contents of this video, please give it a thumbs up. It allows other people to find this content more easily that you have enjoyed. I'm sure by now, if you didn't like the content of the video, you've probably given me a thumbs down, but I'd prefer if you didn't. If you'd like to be notified about when I post additional content to this channel, somewhere about here should be the subscription icon. So please click on there and subscribe to the channel. Over here should be other content that you may enjoy that I've already done or posted to the channel. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you again.